kurang bisan wa jangama kurang bisan ya matrenelo Yandem marong yandem jai kai wai yandem marong suma yandem marong kai wai kurang bisan wa jangama mernala big wajal sumanje ke naise yo ya maton yen kilime na fonye bang fan tv yen kilime na fonye bang fan tv yen kilime na fonye bang gasiti kadomo wallahi yen kilime na fonye bang yen kilime na fonye bang gasiti kadomo de wallahi gasiti kadomo fan tv yen kilime na fonye bang
Good afternoon, esteemed viewers. This is Fine TV Gambia, your only viewpoint. Today we are at Metzy Hotel in Senegambia here to attend a 2-day workshop that is organized by Women Association for Women and Victims Empowerment in collaboration with the Gambia Federation of the Disabled. Right here we are with the chairman of the Gambia Federation of the Disabled, and we'll be having some discussion with him. Magister Kurubali, you are welcome to Fine TV Gambia, your only viewpoint.
All right, thank you very much, viewers. I am Magistrate Kurubali, the chairman of Gambia Federation of the Disabled and chairman of National Disability Advisory Council. Thank you.
Mr. Kurubali, we've seen you organize a very important workshop here since in the morning. Can you please tell us what this workshop is all about?
All right, thank you very much. This 2-day workshop is being organized by Gambia Federation of the Disabled in collaboration with Women Association for Victim Empowerment, courtesy of the funding from the UN Peace Building Project, in order to actually popularize the implementation of post-TRRC recommendations, as well as popularization of Persons with Disabilities Act 2021. So we have realized that actually, if we really mean full and effective participation and inclusion of persons with disabilities in all walks of life as envisaged in the Sustainable Development Goals Agenda of 2030, and of course as in alignment with the principles of persons with disabilities, which is a full and effective participation and inclusion of persons with disabilities in all walks of life or in all sectors, then we need to build the capacities of the affiliated organizations of persons with disabilities, because recently there are 19 organizations of persons with disabilities, ranging from visual impairment, hard of hearing, albinism, physically challenged, mental impairment, and the list goes on. So these different organizations of persons with disabilities actually have capacity gaps, especially in terms of knowledge base in the recommendation of TRRC, as well as the knowledge of Persons with Disabilities Act 2021, which is a disability law, a domesticated legislation of the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. So we feel that the persons with disabilities themselves, representing their organizations of persons with disabilities, should really have knowledge. Their capacities should be built in terms of post-TRRC recommendations from the government's white paper. Let's say, for instance, they should know that after the TRRC presented their recommendations, which were 265, the government later came up with a white paper accepting only 263 out of the 265, because the TRRC recommendations are non-binding. So all these things are thematic areas where we feel that persons with disabilities should also really have knowledge on. Because remember, during the dictatorial regime of the former president Jammeh from 22nd July 1994 to 1st January 2017, many people were subjected to torture, cruel, inhuman, degrading punishment or treatment, and other forms of serious human rights violations. And as a result, they turn into persons with disabilities, or they turn into disabled persons. Some were placed on wheelchairs because of those violations. Some were actually using crutches. Some died. Were some disappeared in any way. So obviously, this is why we need to strengthen the capacities or build the capacities of persons with disabilities, representing their different organizations of persons with disabilities on both post-TRRC recommendations as well as persons with disabilities, which is the disability law. That is why we are converged here today at Metzy Hotel, today Friday 8th November and tomorrow Saturday 9th, inshallah.
So after the completion of this workshop, what is the way forward?
Well, the way forward is this. After the conclusion of this workshop, one, we expect that all the recommendations, for instance, the TRRC recommendations that we are giving to the government, should actually be implemented by the government. The perpetrators who were responsible for serious human rights violations should actually be prosecuted. So actually the victims who really suffered from the serious human rights violations should get reparation or compensation. And at the end of the day, we also expect that even though the recommendations of TRRC are not non-binding to the government, so the government should actually ensure that it really look for fund or funding to ensure that at least it accelerates and make possible the actualization or the implementation or the realization of these TRRC recommendations. And of course, since the victims, are actually sitting waiting for the truth, they should make sure that these victims are giving reparation. And of course, in terms of the Disability Act, we expect that persons with disabilities representing their different organizations of persons with disabilities will have at least knowledge, will be able to have that strength, that ability to advocate for our fundamental rights that are really enshrined in this disability law called Persons with Disabilities Act 2021. And of course, we should keep advocating as a pressure group or civil society organization to the government to make sure that these recommendations are not just white paper, but they are being put into implementation in terms of both spirit and the letter. So these were some of the way forward that we are expecting as the outcome from these 2 days workshop.
So what is your own assessment on today's workshop?
Well, my own assessment from today's workshop is indeed pretty good and excellent. To the effect that one, the turnout is very good, and two, it is very responsive. Three is that at least we could see the contributions, the line of questionings or the observations that are being advanced by persons with disabilities. And these are some of the things that they did not know before, or even if they knew before, but their capacities were not strengthened. So this has given me a whole mark confidence that persons with disabilities from different organizations of persons with disabilities are now strengthened, they are capacitized, and at least they have the confidence and they will be able to advocate tomorrow in order to influence the government, influence the non-governmental organizations, parastatals, individuals, and other authorities of the fundamental rights of persons with disabilities that must be respected, promoted, and protected and fulfilled. And of course, by extension, again, since I have inter alia told you that they didn't have that broader knowledge and the understanding on the post TRRC recommendation, but now they know what TRRC means, what are the recommendations that has really actually been placed to the government, and in the government white paper, since there were 263 from 265 to be implemented, they know all these things, so they will know how to advocate through the radios, through the media, both electronic and print, in bantabas, in mosques, in churches, and different places where the public usually gather. So obviously, it is very, very, very impressive, really. I got a strong impression of the fellow persons with disabilities now. Their capacities are built, they will become very good advocates, and they will be on a continuous and strong advocacy.
Your Highness, before we take a leave of you, what will be your final message to the viewers?
My final message to the viewers is going to be anchored on section 5 of Persons with Disabilities Act 2021 and Article 4 of the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, to make sure that from the government, non-governmental organizations, civil society organizations, parastatals, individuals, and other authorities must implement all the fundamental rights of persons with disabilities that are enshrined in the disability law and in the Convention on African Disability Protocol. And number two, we should ensure that all the laws, conventions, rules, regulations, customs, and practices are either abolished or reviewed because they tend to discriminate, persons with disabilities. And of course, we should also make sure that we promote what we call research, especially on the issue of data about persons with disabilities. We should also make sure that at least the laws are harmonized, and we should also ensure that at least discrimination is being put into an end to allow persons with disabilities to coexist, to be independent, to be included, and to live in the community, but not actually to be institutionalized. So all these are the expectations, and these are my words of advice to the government and everybody to ensure the full and equal treatment of persons with disabilities on an equal basis with others.
My name's actually Mariam Jakiba Sise, and I work with WAVE, Women's Association for Women and Victims Empowerment, as the program's coordinator. So for those who don't know WAVE, because sometimes there's always a misconception between WAVE as an organization and the Money Bureau. So this is an NGO registered in the Gambia, which started in 2019 to actually bridge the gap of women participation in the transitional justice process. So WAVE has been working with the victims of the TJ process since its inception and has been able to reach out to different communities and different victims, from witch hunt to sexual and gender-based violence, enforced disappearance, torture, extra torture, torture, arbitrary arrest, and so many others. And we also work with men because we understand the role men play in society. And as part of that, we also work with persons living with disability, which is also one of our intervention area, which is in connection to what this program is today.
Yes, Madam, we've witnessed you organize. Please, can you tell us what this program is all about?
Okay, so this is a 2 days. So this is actually in connection to the project WAVE is implementing in collaboration with the Gambian Federation of Disabled, and through the Gambian Federation for Disabled, they have different up to 17 DPOs, which are OPDs, organizations for persons living with disability in different regions in the Gambia. So this project is actually funded by OACHR, Office of the Human Rights, Office of the High Commission for Human Rights, and United Nations Development Program through the Peace Building Fund. And this is a grant that was received to actually support persons living with disability in the Gambia in terms of raising awareness on the TRRC recommendation and also the Disability Act. So this is one of the series of activities as part of the project, and this is the capacity building for OPDs organizations in the Gambia for them to have the idea, because we noticed that there is a gap in terms of access to information, participation, and active engagement on the transitional justice process of of organizations of persons living with disability. So to be able to mitigate those gaps, that's why this 2 days capacity building is being held to actually train them on the TRLC recommendation, on the TJ process, so that they can also become active agents who can really participate and not just attend meetings, but really participate, understand the process, and also know their role in the overall transitional justice process in the Gambia, and also the Disability Act, which was enacted in 2021. So this particular one is really targeting persons living with disability because it is through our community outreach and engagement, we've come to find out that most of them are not really aware of the TRLC recommendations. They don't even know the content. They don't even really understand the whole TJ process of the Gambia, which is actually a national process from a authoritarian regime to a democratic dispensation. So through this, some of the recommendation, which is why we are also having this, is that the TRC recommendations, even though the hearings during the TRC, we had sign language interpreters, but if you go back, if you go down to local level in terms of communities, you will notice that there is a gap. Not all of them knows how to read and write. And the TRC recommendations was put in format where it's in terms of writing, even though they were transcribed in local languages. How about those who have hard of hearing? They can't hear and they can't speak and they cannot understand. So how would this information get to them? How about those who can't see and we don't have a system in Braille in which they can be able to access it? So all of these are different accessibility deficits in which we see a need because, like I said, we have 17 OPDs in the different regions. So through this training, we can be able to train the heads of the different OPDs stationed within the region. So by the time they go back, they can be able to disseminate this information to target different disability groups in terms of their participation and active engagement in the overall transitional justice process. My own impression is I think we are actually making progress because a mansion was not built in a day. It takes a foundation and then blocks, and I think we are actually moving. It might not be as fast as some people want it to be, but in as much as there is progress and there are steps being taken, we'll get there. So I think this is an overall a very good program, and I think it should not just end here because one of the key thing about this capacity building is we should also have outcome documents. That's why at the end of today, we're actually dividing them into groups since they've understood some of these some of this information in terms of the TJ, in terms of the TLC, in terms of the reform. How can they actively participate? What are the barriers and challenges that they take? So all of these are recommendations we are going to put in a position paper and present it to the government to be able to have active inclusion and engagement of persons living with disability in the overall transitional justice process in the Gambia. So the center of their discussions is mainly around what are the challenges, what are the opportunities, what are the strategies, advocacy strategies, and how do they plan to disseminate this information? Because we don't want, when we train key members of OPDs, they go back to their community and they don't disseminate the information. Then we've not really achieved the goal of this capacity building. So how many people and how do they plan to reach various people when they go back to their community? So through this group work, they'll be able to come up with concrete strategies, action plans, and next step in terms of implementation following this training. My final message would just emphasize leave no one behind, because when we talk about leave no one behind, the actualization of that or the realization of that is to effectively make sure that everyone is included. That's where the diversity, the inclusivity, and the equity comes in. And we have to make sure at every step in terms of decision making, in terms of policy making, in terms of standard operating procedures, and whatever we do as part of national efforts, we make sure that we actually really tick the boxes, not just tick the boxes, but actively engage everyone and make sure everybody's voices in one way or the other being represented so that we can be able to have a very inclusive and equitable society.
Thank you so much. Sir, can you tell us your name? Yes.
Kwesi Amuako Mensa. I'm for Gambia Organization for Learning Difficulties. That is children with mental challenges and handicaps, so to speak. Yes. And we have a school for them. So Gambia Organization for Learning Difficulties, that is GOLD. which is a member of GFD, that is Gambia Federation for the Disabled.
Since yesterday we are here attending this workshop, what have you learned so far?
Well, one thing I've learned is that the TRRC is not dead. That's my biggest stick on it. Well, even before TRRC, as I said yesterday, I'm a prison pastor. So I've been going in since 94.
Are you a victim?
I'm not a victim, but then when the Ghanaians were killed, when I go in there and I see what is happening and what they do, and they come and take people, you know, I knew them, but because of my position and confidentiality oath I take, I could not tell until TRC came to expose everything. And then the Ghanaians that were killed, the group that were sent to around Brufut, 2 of them managed to run away as they were in line to be killed. And they managed to pass through the forest to Brufut. And when they told their story that they are from Ghana, you know Ghana town? So they sent them to Ghana town. And then they told all their story, everything that had happened to them that night, and how all the others had been killed. So they gave them food and everything. But then, along the line, the soldiers came in. Please, bring those children. They were boys, not even men. And they took them away, not knowing they went and killed them as well, because I think they feared they would be witnesses. Later on, I learned through my prison work that they put them in a well around Tanjil and this thing, before TRRC came. And then I demanded justice.
How many years have you been in the Gambia?
Since 86.
86.
Yes.
Wow.
And so it was heart rendering. And when they took it to ECOWAS court initially, but during Jammeh's time, who is going to testify? Jammeh said he didn't know about it. It was their own people that killed them, and so on and so forth. So he ended up paying compensation for those who died. But when TRRC came and the facts were laid bare, it was good. But then it seemed nothing was going to happen. And then this workshop, the conference.
So you said that you have planned when the TRRC is not there?
Yes, because now they have set up a court. ECOWAS wanted, Gambia wanted ECOWAS to set up the court, from what I gather. And they said they could not come in. So Gambia should set up the court, and then they will bring in experts to sit with the Gambian court, which is a big relief. Because, I mean, those who were killed, some from the prison, I knew them personally, I've seen them. So, the 6-1 that they say going to Janjambure and all, I mean, and so many of them, you know. And thank God, justice is going to be done. And I learned from here, and I'm happy.
So besides from that, what are some of the things that you have learned that would help you with your work?
That will help me with my work is that we have seen people, we have met people who seem to be interested in this gold, in the plight of these children with learning difficulties, and seem to be ready to help, especially for the parents. Imagine you being a mother, your husband deserting you because of a sick child, and you happen to bear it alone. But with this workshop and with the people around that are going to carry the message, I think members of Gold, for them, is the SOS cry that has been answered. At least you are going to reach out to other places, high up and whatever, and something will come out for them. Because if nobody else is helping, and if they will assist them financially to start a trade, to do something that will help them, that will be good. And so I'm happy I'm here to see this and air their plight also here. And with what I saw, the feedback I got from there, know that in the end, we have found people who will hear their cry.
Mission is a national institution mandated broadly to promote and protect human rights in the Gambia. Thus, everything or every right matters or falls within our jurisdiction, including the rights of persons with disabilities. And probably I would ask if the representative of the TJ unit is here, or the Ministry of Justice, or they were here yesterday. Okay, so the reason I am asking this is because we do a lot of work with them, and I may be duplicating efforts if I want to speak to some of the things that are being done. But having seen that there is no representative, I want to mention that despite of the or after the recommendations were made of the TRRC and published, and the white paper published, there was subsequently a document known as the implementation plan, the government white paper. And really, this document breaks down the recommendations further. So if you want to know what is to be done in the next 5 years regarding any specific recommendation of the TRRC, this document is your point of reference. So when you look at it, you will see that they have broken down the recommendations into activities, and mention what activities to be done, for example, in the year 2024, 2025, and onwards. So it really helps in terms of especially organizations like GFD, where you are interested in a specific recommendation, you can always go back to the implementation plan and look at the activities that were said to be going to be implemented. For example, in 2024, we are already in December. And if you see that these activities are not implemented, really, that is your point of attack or engagement with the Ministry of Justice and relevant stakeholders that are responsible for the implementation of said recommendation. So I believe this document really will help us in terms of fostering engagements, not only for us, for the stakeholders, but also for us as civil society organizations, because we also have a role to play in terms of implementation of some of the recommendations.
Some of what I wanted to talk about has been covered, but then I just wanted to, going back to the discussion points, and just see how we can still continue to engage on this critical, important topic of promoting the rights of persons with disabilities. And in this sense, I also wanted to speak on a particular issue, which is to focus on women and girls with disabilities. It's already that intersectionality of ongoing discrimination and lack of inclusion. And as has been talked about in terms of the tiers and the wrong, regrettably, women and girls with disabilities find themselves at the lower rung of all the ladders we are talking about, looking at the different issues. Looking at issues of inclusion, we can see that there are still so many gaps which needs to be covered. And so as we're talking about promoting understanding, awareness raising and all, I believe we should also look at how we do that so that those issues, specific challenging issues of women and girls with disabilities, would always be at the forefront. Having the disaggregated data, as Council Basiruba has talked about, that definitely is important. And it's a shame, but it is the reality, unfortunately, in terms of what is lacking. So how do we also, looking at inclusion and promoting a feminist approach, make sure that we don't forget part of society who are also who also have a voice and need to be able to be considered every step of the way and bring them into the situations. So looking at the unique challenges that women and girls face would be definitely one of the takeaways I would like for us to do, and to encourage OPDs to also have that as part of the portfolio. I know you do. I believe you do, and I believe there's a lot of work which is being done. Whatever is being done, we just need to increase that so that it would be enhanced even much more. And in that vein, possibly also do a research and see what are the unique challenges that are being faced, so that when we're trying to address those issues, it would be from an informed perspective.